Monica McNutt has done it again. Caitlin Clark finally explains that the nonstop media narratives are exhausting, that people who have never spoken to her keep making accusations about her character. And what does McNutt do? She immediately creates another character accusation. According to Monica McNutt, Caitlin Clark needs more accountability, more self-awareness, and a better understanding of her place in the WNBA sisterhood. Accountability for what, Monica? She never says. That is the trick. Make the accusation vague, make it moral, and let the audience fill in the crime. Welcome back, everybody, to Indiana Fever Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Like the video, hype the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. I'm your host, Rudy Rodriguez Showmont. You know what it is. You know what we do. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what Monica McNutt had to say, actually, on camera.
Honest reflection, but in totality, Monica, we don't often get to hear Caitlin Clark's perspective in quite this level of honesty. And this is an important conversation to continue to have with empathy for everybody involved. So listening to that, what was your reaction?
I thought the choice, the word of being fearful of the conversation after a game that she alluded to was interesting, because oftentimes it seems, at least in the larger discourse, and not that there's not an emotional experience for Caitlin Clark, because I believe that it is, but it's the folks that are accused of doing something outside of the parameters of competition that are actually the ones that are fearful when you look at their social medias. This is what I will say. Caitlin Clark is 24. She is a shining star in the galaxy of the WNBA. But I do think as she continues to matriculate through this league, there's room for a little bit more accountability and self-awareness in terms of her role in the larger sisterhood, if she sees it that way, in the WNBA. But Malika, I agree with her 100%. It is certainly exhausting for all of us who really want to celebrate where this league is and the beautiful basketball that is being played. This larger discourse that can be very disappointing.
Yeah, and I think that we all have a responsibility in seeing where we fit in that discourse, and what we are working to do on this show is focus in right there on the game that we all love so very much, and that's what we're going to do over the course of this next hour.
Wow, there you heard it from Monica McNutt herself, and thank the Lord for Malika Andrews. Goodness gracious. Thank the Lord for Malika Andrews, who had to add at the end, we are part of the process. We are part of the problem. The national media actually helps control the discourse that is discussed nationally. And Monica McNutt once again shows that she is tone deaf. Self-awareness, accountability. I didn't know that it was her job to referee the world. What's her accountability? How many times does she have to speak up? You want to talk about basketball, but instead you say you want to talk about basketball, Monica, but instead you're talking about what is Caitlin Clark's responsibility and accountability? She's dealt with more abuse than any player in the WNBA. Let's establish the facts before the spin. Clark told Malika Andrews that the coverage around routine basketball incidents becomes emotionally draining. She was talking about leaving the locker room and wondering what story the media would manufacture next. She was not saying she feared Alyssa Thomas. She was not dismissing threats received by other players. She was describing the anxiety of seeing a hard foul turned into a referendum on race, character, politics, and the entire culture of the league. Monica McNutt takes the word fearful, changes its context, and redirects sympathy away from Clark. That is a straw man. Clark's complaint was about media framing. The very thing McNutt then demonstrated in real time. Here is the most important question that specific action should Caitlin Clark be accountable for. Did she send the threats? No. Did she defend racist abuse? No. Did she refuse to condemn harassment? No. Clark has publicly said harassment and hate are unacceptable, whether they target opponents, teammates, or coaches. After the Alyssa Thomas incident, she condemned the abuse again. So if Monica has a concrete example of Clark encouraging hatred, put it on the screen. Name the quote. Name the action. Provide the evidence. Instead, we get sisterhood. What does that mean here? Must Clark accept blame for anonymous accounts she does not control? Must she remain silent when commentators assign motives to her? Must she protect every other player's feelings? Before she can describe her own? That standard is impossible. I do not see it applied evenly across the league. This is why the take feels so insulting. Clark asked the media to stop inventing a person they do not know. Monica McNutt's response was to invent a moral failure without identifying it. You cannot demand accountability while refusing to identify the offense. Here is what Caitlin Clark had to say to Malika Andrews.
Case in point, an incident like Alyssa Thomas, the foul. A foul happens on the court.
Yeah.
You move on. She moves on.
Yeah.
And that should be the end of it.
100%.
So top down, what needs to be done so that that is?
It seems like there's always a moment like that in every season that I've played so far. And I think for myself, like, I just try to navigate it the best I can. It gets exhausting. It gets frustrating because I think especially like that's a perfect example of like, yeah, it was a hard foul and it should have been dealt with in the moment and they should have decided what it was then and reviewed it. Great. We move on. You see it happen in the NBA all the time. It's not anything more than that. It's basketball. When I walk out of the
or was truly based on her personality, but she was a white girl from the middle of America. And so she represented a whole lot to a lot of people, whether that is truly what she prescribed to or not. We can all say she is a dynamic basketball player and a force both on the court and the marketing sense. But I do think, same thing with folks that may have fallen in love with Angel Reese that she may or may not have agreed with everything they had to say either. We attach our fandom to these icons for all types of reasons, and sometimes they may not be based in all truth.
Wow, folks. That framing never explains why Clark separated from the other excellent white players. Sabrina Ionescu was already a star. Kelsey Plum was already a champion. Cam Brink had enormous visibility as a model. Clark became a phenomenon because she broke records, shot from the logo, packed arenas, and brought a massive college audience with her. In another ESPN discussion after a Clark Reese incident, McNutt warned that one player is automatically cast as a victim and the other as someone who must be saved. Racist abuse against players is real and should be condemned. But the rhetorical move is always similar. A basketball moment becomes a racial morality play, and Clark becomes responsible for the behavior of strangers. That is what I mean when I call this race baiting. The newest clip does not explicitly say race, but it reviews the same racial framework through sisterhood, social media guilt, and selective accountability.
But, and kudos to the league, they're making a point to support and believe their players, right? We're at least going to look into it if our players said that they were uncomfortable. Look, SA, and you've been a part of the rise of the W in the last 3 seasons or so. I really grapple with, like, is this the other side of the coin in terms of the attention, right? But I'm with Janae in terms of a base level of the respect of humanity and of these athletes that are competing at a high level. I will say this, though. We have seen in the NBA, guys turn to a ref and say that's out of bounds. Yeah. And folks are asked to leave the arena. And so I think the respect for competition, the respect for sport, the respect for one another extends beyond the players that are on the floor. And I applaud the WNBA for taking active steps to make sure that their players feel heard and safe.
Wow, look at how Monica McNutt just completely changes the conversation as always. It's typical Monica McNutt behavior. Even when the subject was basketball, McNutt's Clark takes have aged badly. In July 2024, she gave Angel Reese the Rookie of the Year edge because Chicago was barely ahead of Indiana in the standings. To be fair, she said Clark would become the runaway choice if Indiana finished higher. But that should tell you how weak the original case was. A half-game standing snapshot was doing more work than Clark's playmaking, scoring gravity, and record-setting production.
I have said this all season, BC. My Rookie of the Year is going to go based on the standings.
Okay.
Because I think that is how you have the opportunity to measure impact.
And the sky's right above them.
And the Sky right now are in the playoffs, so you'd have to give the nod in my mind to Angel Reese. Look, the double-double streak that she's rocking and rolling, chasing down, 12 double-doubles to start is the record that spanned over 2 seasons. She's already gotten to 11. I think when you sit back and you look at what's around her, head coach Teresa Weatherspoon in her first year, there's not another #1 draft pick on that roster currently. There's not another all-star on that roster currently from years past. Indiana, they are building blocks.
Yeah.
Aaliyah Boston, Rookie of the Year, #1 pick last year. Obviously, Caitlin Clark this year. Kelsey Mitchell has had big-time seasons over the course of her career. So there's more there in terms of the supporting cast around Caitlin, but both of them have been incredibly impressive. And I think those odds don't really indicate how close this race is.
Yeah,
Wow, another example of Monica McNutt being a complete nut. Have you ever heard anyone base Rookie of the Year in any league on wins and losses? Rookie of the Year usually goes to the player who's on a really bad team. That's generally how it goes. I mean, Cooper Flagg just won the Rookie of the Year this year on a really bad team. You know, a few years ago when Victor Wembanyama won the Rookie of the Year, based on her logic, Chet Holmgren should have won it. I mean, even though there's no one on earth that would have argued that Wemby shouldn't have won it, except for maybe her. Another example of the lunacy of one Monica McNutt. I digress. Clark ultimately received 66 of 67 first-place votes and carried Indiana to its first playoff appearance since 2016. Analysts can be wrong. That is part of the job. The problem is the recurring direction of the error. Minimize Clark's impact, elevate a counter-narrative, and then move from basketball into a lecture about what Clark owes everybody else. Now look at ESPN. In the latest restructuring, Ryan Clark was gone. Cam Newton was gone. Karl Ravech, after 33 years, was gone. David Lloyd, Stefania Bell, Bart Scott, Charles Davis, Tom Pelissero, Andreas Hale, and Dan Hajducky were among the reported departures. The honest context matters. ESPN said most of those cuts were tied to integrating NFL network assets and eliminating overlapping roles. So I cannot tell you Monica McNutt was directly chosen over those employees, and neither can anybody else outside the company. But viewers are still entitled to ask what ESPN values. Veteran experience can be cut for efficiency, while commentary that repeatedly turns its biggest women's basketball star into a racial controversy machine remains on the air. Maybe ESPN believes outrage is engagement. Maybe the trigger is the product. If so, say it plainly. But do not sell this as objective analysis. When your answer to a player requesting fair coverage is another vague moral indictment, you are not covering the controversy, you are manufacturing it. Caitlin Clark is not above criticism. As you know, I openly criticize Caitlin Clark quite often. Criticize the turnovers. Criticize the defense. Criticize the technical fouls or the shot selection. That is sports. But stop demanding that 124-year-old answer for every ugly post, every political group, and every stranger who uses her name. Monica McNutt asked for accountability. Fine. Let us apply it evenly. Analysts should be accountable for the context they erase, the accusations they imply, and the racial narratives they repeatedly force onto basketball conversations. If there is a specific charge against Clark, state it and prove it. If there is not, stop hiding behind words like sisterhood, for which we all know that you don't want her to be a part of to begin with. ESPN just proved that almost nobody is untouchable. The question is whether the network wants analysts who illuminate the game or personalities who inflame the audience. Because this latest take did not clarify anything. It did exactly what Clark said she was exhausted by. It stirred up another controversy and made the conversation about everything except basketball. Let me know in the comments. Was McNutt asking a fair question? We already know the answer. Or was this another race-centered double standard aimed at Caitlin Clark? Like the video, subscribe, hype the video, turn your notifications on. This is Indiana Fever Unfiltered, powered by Come On Now, the podcast. Come on now.